Well, it's that time of year again, the time of giving and joy, and where I make a mediocre rushed video about some terrible Christmas movie. If you remember, the last couple years I made videos based on these two box sets. Well, I've obviously already done those, and there isn't any more shorts to make videos on there. Also, I hate them and don't want to watch them. So for this year, we're doing Deck the Halls, starring Danny Devito and Ferris Bueller. Just ignore the fact that this is a two-parter with Jingle All the Way. We're not talking about this movie. I was planning to, but I don't have time to do both. Also, I hate Deck the Halls too much for my mental stability to hold up doing both. Maybe I'll do that one next year, who knows? So without further ado, let's watch Deck the Halls. Literally one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Also, if this intro seems rushed, it is, I'm pressed for time. So the movie opens on an optometrist's office, with Ferris bullying his patient for being old. His character obviously has a name that isn't Ferris Bueller, but I refuse to remember it and I will call him exclusively Ferris for the rest of the movie. Same thing goes with Danny DeVito, so if that bothers you, it's too bad. So after he's done, he just wanders around town for a little while, where apparently everybody knows him and regards him as the king of Christmas or whatever. Apparently he runs Winterfest, a carnival, and there's a really weird joke about the sheriff cross-dressing. After this uncomfortable exchange, he goes home to his clinically depressed son going through his midlife crisis. A joke that is used exclusively in this scene and may be mentioned once again. His daughter's there as well, who hates him, and his wife, who likes making weird food and wants to write a cookbook. That is their entire characters summed up right there. That's all you need to know about them. That's all I know about them, and I've seen the movie. Ferris is obsessed with Christmas, and he has a weird calendar that dictates how Christmas must be done, and he will stick to it without questioning anything or deviating in the slightest. Pretty sure that's a cult. Are you okay? Do you need help? Blink once if you need help. So that night, Danny DeVito moves in next door, and there's a weird exchange in the morning where Danny steals Ferris's coffee. Also, Ferris's dick falls out, and Danny and his wife make fun of him for having a small dick. That is not a joke. Later that day, Ferris's wife and kids go to see Danny's wife and kids, and it turns out that Danny's kids and wife are whores, and this makes Ferris's son horny. These kids are supposed to be 15, why did they write this? But hold on, that's the one random plot thread that's gonna come back, unfortunately. That day at work, Danny sells a car to the dealership where he works as owner, and realizes he wants to make something big and important with his life. So his kids discover Google Earth with a live satellite feed of every house from space, which is not a thing. So Danny realizes he wants to make his house visible from space, so he buys a whole bunch of Christmas lights to try and accomplish this goal. Ferris doesn't like all the bright lights, and now he doesn't like Danny, and apparently Danny is like Drax and doesn't understand metaphors, which is another weird joke that doesn't ever come back. So Danny keeps buying lights and finds some wild horses outside town that he decides to use for his Christmas display. So he straps them up to his sleigh, gives them fake antlers, which of course results in Ferris getting in the sleigh, and the horses running off, giving us a wacky chase where a lot of people almost get killed, a ton of property damage occurs, and Ferris fucking dies at the end of it. Nah, I'm just kidding. The movie would actually be likable if it didn't here. Instead, Ferris wakes up to the dream that every human being on this planet has had at least once, which is waking up naked in the back of a truck beside an equally naked Danny DeVito. After Ferris gets released from the hospital, we get a scene that actually kind of makes me sad, where Ferris's son wants to go to the mall to get presents with his dad, and his dad just blows him off. It's such a weird and awkward scene, but just look at his face. Also in a surprise twist, Danny is leeching power from Ferris's house to power his lights. The next day, Ferris and family go to the tree farm to get a Christmas tree, and Danny's family comes with them, because these people hate the environment and cut down a tree instead of buying a pre-lit one from Costco that isn't going to leave needles all over your house for only a couple $100 and can be reused every year. This is not sponsored, by the way, but man, I wish it was. While they're there, Ferris goes to his private lot for growing trees, and Danny accidentally spills gasoline all over them, and we get a joke that makes me want to die.
Does anyone smell gas?
Well, it's probably me, but cut me some slack. I'm swinging pretty hard.
Also, Ferris manages to light everything on fire and burns his trees down, so he gets a tiny little tree to replace it. Around town, Danny is replacing Ferris as the Christmas king, or whatever, so Ferris doesn't like that, so he just encourages people just to steal the things Dan bought. We then go back to the wives, who, for some reason, have a way more chemistry than anybody else in this movie, And apparently they're gonna write their cookbook together, which is another plot thread that doesn't go anywhere. Also, Ferris doesn't like his daughter with Danny's kids. And now Danny's house wraps, and that cuts off Ferris's caroling practice. Danny's house is bringing so many people around that there's RVs blocking Ferris's driveway. To combat this, Ferris decides to go to the aforementioned cross-dressing sheriff. So we get a comical scene of a drunk dude guiding Ferris out of his driveway, and he wrecks his car. So he drives to the sheriff's with no doors, which is illegal. Think that through for about 12 seconds and tell me why it's not a good idea. Eventually, Ferris makes it to the sheriff's, but he won't arrest Danny for light pollution or whatever bullshit thing Ferris came up with. But he will let Ferris file a complaint or something. And then it's revealed that the sheriff really is cross-dressing. And so he leaves. Why? Do you want Danny gone or not? I don't understand this. He just leaves. Ferris then decides to take matters in his own hands, instead of involving Danny in some sort of legal dispute. So he just decides to break his power box in a weird Mission Impossible scene. It's not good. Ferris's son eventually catches him and decides to act as lookout from a power line. And when Danny eventually comes out, Ferris hides in the worst possible way. We get a Nickelodeon TV style mess with a camel. Have I mentioned I do not like this movie? Anyways, Ferris throws a snowball into the fuse box, but surprise, Danny has a backup generator that makes a lot of noise. Also, the wife catches Ferris and there's a weird joke about the son's mental capacity. The next morning, Ferris wakes up to a new tree in his house, coffee on the counter, and a new car in the driveway. They're gifts from Danny for being such a bad neighbor. How sweet. But what I want to know is how Danny managed to get this massive tree into their house without alerting anyone. That's the biggest question I have about this movie. It doesn't matter because it turns out that the tree is stolen from town square and Ferris actually has to pay for the car. Back at Danny's work, Dan gets yelled at by his boss because he never shows up because he's always working on the lights and he gets fired. Ferris then shows up, mad that Dan forcibly sold him a car and put a stolen tree in his house, and then starts threatening that he'll sue Dan for forging his signature. But Dan counters that because he knows Ferris broke the fuse box. So, like responsible adults, they make a bet to see who can win the skating race at the Winter Festival. Also, Danny references Jurassic Park.
It's a beautiful car. It's fully loaded. You spared no expense.
Do not desecrate my favorite movie, Deck the Halls. Do not make me hate you more than I already do. We then go back to the Winter Fair. They're just having a huge dick measuring concert at the Fair Games. And of course, it all goes wrong, and Ferris hits an old lady, and it's just... Then they go down the slide, and then they fall during the race. Oh, there goes Ferris. He jumps the thing. There he goes. With a bullet on my head. Dan eventually wins the race by coincidence and fouls, but before that, we have one of the most uncomfortable scenes I have ever seen in a movie. The wives get mad at them for being dumbasses, and then make them go watch the live show they're having on stage, and some girls come out and start being sexy or whatever, and Dan and Ferris are into that.
Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy?
Really creepy. Of course, it's their daughters. I hate this movie. They're 15. Why would you do this? Danny's lights are eventually getting expensive, so he sells his wife's vase. You know, the thing that was offhandedly mentioned once. And because of this, Dan's wife leaves them, with Alvin and the Chipmunks playing in the background. Ferris, on the other hand, goes out and buys a bunch of illegal fireworks to attempt to kill Danny. That is not a joke. He tries to bomb Danny's house, but of course it backfires and one of them shoots into his own house and lights their tree on fire, causing his wife to leave too and go hang out with Danny's wife. Dan and Ferris then argue for a little bit and eventually come to an agreement where they string lights across the entire city to lead the wives and kids back home where they've made Christmas dinner for them, all from recipes that were in the cookbook that the wives haven't even started writing. The generic message about family and people show up because Ferris called them to come help put the lights back up. But oh no, they don't work, so they all pull out flashlights and wave them like they're at a concert. They all sing and Danny Bond or whatever. Anyways, the power is just unplugged. And then... oh god. Then the lights create a goddamn sky beam like every other superhero movie to come out this decade. You know, there comes a point in every reviewer's life where something is so incredibly wrong that you don't even know what to say. I don't know how to answer this. Thank God, it's over. So that was Deck the Halls. Pretty good movie, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching, everyone. Merry Christmas. No, I can't in good conscience say that. I hate this movie so much. Never watch it, ever. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. It's been a pretty good year for the channel. You should like and subscribe. I'll be here next year, so just keep looking out for that. I'll probably upload before the end of the year, not gonna lie, but just relax over the holidays. Have a glass of eggnog and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. See you next year. It's gross. Good enough.